Create not to be understood. Create to understand. In this video today, I want to talk about why enlightened creatives who are self-aware enough to know better still struggle with fear of rejection and tend to be very hard on ourselves about our own creations, especially when we are sharing them and trying to get other people to understand us and buy in. In previous videos, I shared with all of you my theory on why creatives tend to be lonely. Unfortunately, when it comes to surviving in our current world, a lot of creatives have to actually diminish their own creativity and allow their creative gifts to be used by other people in order to find employment. If you ask them and allow them to actually be truly honest, they may feel as if they're not fully fulfilled by that occupation. It's a common thing amongst enlightened, self-aware, inspired creatives that one of our goals is to exit conventional employment and try to create for ourselves an opportunity where we get to be an unfiltered creative and just make the things that we want to make, to express ourselves as creative channels and produce pure art or pure expression. We've also talked about the tendency for people like ourselves to want to innovate, to do new things, to put new things out into the world. But the challenge that we hit when we try to do that is that we are often misunderstood because the average person doesn't want something new and innovative. They want something familiar and safe. So when you are employed as a creative in a conventional employment opportunity, you are often creating things that serve that exact desire. You're making things that are relatively safe. And you do truly have to work very hard to climb the ladder in whatever opportunity you're inside of, to be respected enough as a creative person, to be allowed to try to innovate, to try to put your creativity into that space. If you've been in this situation and you've found yourself frustrated, do know you're not alone. A lot of us feel this way. A lot of us who have creative talents, who either as a contractor or freelancer or are conventionally employed, use those talents, so share our creativity as our occupation. A lot of us get frustrated by this. There are a lot of other skill sets that a person has to develop in order to typically be respected as a leader. And some creatives are able to do that, but not every creative is, because it doesn't really interest them to go through the motions of pleasing others and behaving in certain ways, even if they can completely understand what those ways are, in order to elevate themselves in status within a hierarchy of employment to be respected enough to contribute as a creative. That is not everyone. Some people are completely okay with it, or they recognize the downfalls, but they do it in order to achieve the benefits, which is to be the leader who's able to lead. And by lead, I mean contribute creative ideas where they're actually listened to and they have the opportunity to express those in the world. This is something that I've thought about a lot, and one of the mantras or affirmations I used to use for myself when building my career was, do the things that others won't to have the things that others don't. I really did want a career as a creative, and therefore I was willing to, first of all, develop my leadership skills, develop my communication, work on myself personally so I could grow professionally, and it has for the most part worked. And I don't regret becoming more polished as far as my leadership skills, my ability to work with others, to kind of reduce my own stubbornness in order to cooperate and allow other people to use my creativity to achieve things, because what I really wanted was to be able to work as a creative. However, inside, and you may feel this as well, inside I'm aware that this is what I have to do, because to be a pure artist and be able to express yourself creatively, unfiltered, uncommercialized, actually make the things that you want to make, well, that is a tall ask because of the very real truth that we all need to eat food, keep a roof over our heads, and the opportunity to be a pure artist, well, those opportunities are often rare to find, or you really have to be ambitious, take risks, and carve them out for yourself. This is why we get the creative, enlightened entrepreneur, because you might be like myself, where you recognize you're going to need to be an entrepreneur if you really want to be able to do the things that you love to do to support yourself. However, as I said at the beginning of this video, what we really need to talk about is the challenge of fearing rejection, fearing being unaccepted, removed from society, too strange, too different, unemployable in some cases, if you allow yourself to be fully expressed authentically as a creative. People tell you to be yourself, but this advice to be yourself, when you actually examine that, is a nice idea, but it's not really how the world works. A lot of people have to have masks, personas, a personality that is pleasant and appeasable and easygoing. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because we can't all be stubborn bulldogs all the time and try to get our way. But for creatives, especially if they are sensitive people, you feel a little bit diminished when you're trying to be a creative innovator, you're trying to bring new things into the world, and every opportunity you have to do that is also the opportunity to put yourself out there and be rejected. Simply the fact that every time you want to share something you made with the world, you also are required to put yourself in a vulnerable position where people can then decide things about you connected to your work. If you are a sensitive individual, that can be terrifying. And as we've talked about before, if most of your joy and dopamine actually comes from creation, not so much promotion, you may also become very blocked by this, because for everything that you produce, you also are going to need to figure out a way to promote it. And that is going to put you out there into the world, which is where a lot of people get stuck. And a common misunderstanding is that the reason why this is so hard is because we care too much about what other people think of us. But if you actually ask and get to the actual deeper truth, it is because in our intuitive instincts, in our self, in our spirit, in our soul, we know that it really isn't just about being liked, because we're not creating to be liked. A lot of us are creating to actually understand. So as I said at the beginning of this video, we create not to be understood, We create to understand. Our creative activities are part of our learning process. It's also how we channel from the collective consciousness and try to express an idea or communicate something to other people. In a future video, I really want to get into viewing creativity as a spiritual gift, because I have some thoughts on that explain why creatives really do truly struggle in this world very quietly and silently, as we have to compromise a lot of our own internal desires in order to actually carve our way to be able to be employed as creatives or sell ourselves as creatives and become entrepreneurial in order to do that. I do want to be positive here about how you can break through this if this is resonating, that it is a challenge for you because you so badly want to be able to just express yourself. Full-time opportunities to do that often require you to reduce your own creative expression and commercialize yourself. I've struggled with this, and one of the ways that I have come to be accepting and even embracing of it is to not view myself so much as someone who must be appreciated for all of the different facets of my varying talents, varying creative potential, but instead recognize that I have a special ability to make things for other people or to help other people by being someone who is able to take what others are trying to express, but they don't have the ability to do so, and communicate it for them. Just as in life we can ask God to use us, we can surrender to God and say, God, use me, take my hands, use them for your will. I think then how that shows up in our lives when we surrender to that is we recognize that we have these special gifts, but other people do not, and they are required to borrow them from us, and we can rent those out. We can sell them to other people. We ourselves are a potential economy. And it's all about managing your own ego and becoming a humble participant as far as where you're going to have your income come from. But I do always recommend that anybody who identifies as an artist has some side activity, either for some extra income or just simply to have a place where they can create simply for themselves or simply for the world, but without a filter of needing to be making it for somebody else's commercial purposes. I personally am always working on side projects. That is how I entertain myself. I use my creativity to learn things and then try things and tinker. And doing that, in addition to what I do for my professional career, allows me to kind of exercise that creative muscle, always be able to have a space where I can actually do what I want without having any resentment towards the work that I get hired for. Is it a perfect solution? No. And does my heart ache wishing I could be working on my passion projects instead of work that I'm doing for other people? Yes. But you manage this by having that self-awareness and kind of that humble servant's attitude, while also believing in yourself that it isn't forever, that eventually, if you continue to put one foot in front of the other with your creative endeavors and continuously adjust your life as you are able, as you become more financially stable, to carve out more time so that you can then prioritize the actual entrepreneurial creative work that you want to be doing. You do not want to be resentful of the fact that other people want to utilize your creativity for their own means, because that's going to keep you from charging your worth and actually stepping up to the plate and moving towards new opportunities where you will get to be a respected participant who is contributing their creative ideas. If you resent that you need to actually work on certain aspects of yourself to be palatable, to develop yourself professionally in order to be respected as a creative when you're dealing with others who do want to hire you for your creative talents, if you're resenting that, then that resentment is going to block you from those opportunities. It will not flow. Try having a side project or an artistic endeavor that is purely you, just an unfiltered creative channel. That is my advice. If what I've talked about in this video hits home, I'd love to invite you to join my 40,000 member creative entrepreneurial Facebook group. It can be difficult to talk about these things and find others who really understand. Inside of the enlightened entrepreneurs community, this is really what it's about. Recognizing the common experiences that those of us who have creative gifts go through. In the Enlightened Entrepreneurs Facebook group, you'll find others who truly understand the compromises and internal challenges that come with being a self-aware, enlightened, creative individual. We're encouraging each other in our entrepreneurial endeavors while also understanding the truth that this world, our society, requires a lot of people like ourselves to find solutions, to be able to utilize our creative gifts so our spirits aren't diminished in some role that doesn't let us be creative at all, while also still being realistic that there's some compromises we have to make, especially while we try to get our own entrepreneurial endeavors off the ground. So if you'd like to be around other people who can relate to this, I highly recommend you join my group. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If it's not too much extra to ask, just subscribe to my channel. I'm working really hard to learn how to create great, useful content that speaks to other creatives like myself. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.